Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Future Forward Analyst Learning Series. On this platform, we'll get the opportunity to learn and network with thought leaders and experienced analysis professionals. They will come here to share their insights about the various business analysis ways of working, as well as share their career journeys to inspire new and experienced analysts to advance their careers. At the end of the show, you would get a recap of highlights from this event. We're going to share it later in the week. So make sure to subscribe to the newsletter so that you can receive these and all of the upcoming events. Now, let me introduce our guest, our inaugural guest. Bev, I think you deserve a badge.
We'll talk about that after.
Oh, yeah. So join me to welcome Beverly. She's an experienced business analyst and she works in the banking sector. Bev supports banks to transform their businesses to meet market demands. She has had a very interesting career journey and she's going to tell us how she's managed all of that throughout the years. She started as a programmer, a systems analyst, and now she works as a business analyst. These varied experiences has helped her with very unique skill set that has become very, very valuable to her clients. She's very creative. She enjoys, outside of normal work time, she does glass staining, photography, and rug hooking. Bev, I don't know that. I think you're going to teach me very soon. Welcome, Bev, to the show this evening.
Thank you very much, Oge, for that great introduction. And it's an honor to be here for your first show. So thank you so much for even considering me. I'm really pleased to be here.
You're welcome. So can you tell us a little bit about how your early career exploration, how did you get started? How did you navigate? Just a brief history, background about your career journey.
It was an interesting start. To be honest, I had to make a choice between accounting and computer programming. I flipped a coin, computer programming won. So I became a developer. And through my work, I found developing was fun, but to me, it wasn't challenging enough because it was basically, you do this. There was no really analysis of it, and like trying to get in to figure out how things worked and why they worked the way they did was really intriguing to me. So I shifted focus and actually went more towards the system analyst and testing type of work, which took me on a fantastic journey through Europe. I lived in Dublin for a couple of years, Dublin, Ireland, working on first generation smartphones and doing analysis with them and doing testing with them. So it was a lot of fun. And then I returned back to Canada and I went through the progression of really going from a systems point of view to more of a business point of view. And I've been for over the last 6 years looking at work from a business perspective and doing that business analysis on projects. And most recently, working with some large banks. So it's been very interesting and a very great learning experience for me because I've learned how to work in regulated environments and learned how to take that regulation, but also keep a focus on the people that are using the systems.
Wow, very, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Let me quickly welcome our audience. Hi, Chidima. Thanks for joining us from Halifax. Hello, Zainab from Edmonton, Alberta. Thank you for joining us. I also see Olamide from Saskatchewan. Thank you for joining us today. Hi, Destiny. I see you. Good evening. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, Bev, back to you. Let me ask you the first question for today. And guys, feel free to drop your questions. Anything you are curious to ask Beverly about this evening, please drop it in the chat. I will retrieve it and post it to Beverly, okay? Thank you. So Bev, the first question I have for you this evening is, what is customer-centric analysis? When you say customer-centric analysis, how business analysts can really uncover true needs. What do you really mean by that?
Well, it's a very good question because it's not something that you often hear verbalized. in the business analysis world. But really, it's a focus on your customer and really finding out who your customer is. Because it's kind of like the old analogy of unpeeling an onion, because there's different layers to your customer. You have your sponsor that usually comes to you and say, I want some work done. Here's my project. And they give you the business objectives of probably the company, right? And then you look a little bit further and you realize, oh, wait, that's not just my customer. I also have the business department that's involved in this transformation or this new evolution of their work. So then you have them. So how do they feed into obtaining these business objectives, right, of the project? And then you dig a little bit deeper and you find out you have another customer, and that customer is the end user that's every day in the IT system, or even if it's a manual process, it's the people that are working with that every day, and how they are influenced by the work that's being done, but also how they influence the work being done. Because that's really where you're going to find your processes and where you're going to find how things fit together. And then you have the people maintaining it. So how do they work with this? What do they have? Do they see any kind of concerns or issues that they have that should be looked at to be resolved? And then you also have to look at if this is a business that's customer facing, as in they have their own customers, those customers are now your customers too, because you need to make sure that the end users can still deliver the quality of service that they had been providing previously. So you find out what all of the pieces are and what every customer is. It could be an outside person that's using your data for a reporting system. It could be feeding, like an HR system, feeding into a payroll system. So you really want to find out what all the components are, who all the players are, and really focus on how it is that you can actually maintain the level of service for each customer involved in the project.
Thank you so much. And in layman terms, what I hear you describe, can I call it stakeholder identification?
It's
Can I describe it?
Yeah, it's like stakeholder identification, but then you also have to make sure that when you're doing your work, so the second component really of it is after you've done that stakeholder identification, and it comes into the reality of um, why we do this work. It's because we want to make sure that everyone is considered so that you're not basically forcing or implementing a change on someone that's not going to be productive, excuse me, for them. So you're really considering how people work in the systems. You're really considering what needs the systems need to do and how those systems affect the people. So when you're and how that affects the business, because really it's about what the objectives are, right? And how to measure those objectives. And so all of those players, how do they feed in that so that the sponsor gets what they want out of it, but also everyone else does. You're really looking at the people part of it and how they play in the system.
Thank you so much. So the next question I would ask you is, which I think you've answered kind of, but I really want you to highlight this, right? Because of our audience, because of new BAs that might not be aware of this. Why do you think customer-centric analysis, why do you think is very important for a business analyst or for any analysis professional in their work?
Well, although we live in an automated IT world, people are still the center of everything, right?
Sure.
So it's if you have a computer and you need someone to run it, that's a person, right? So it's really important to really take these people and build those relationships, because those are the people that are actually going to help achieve that business goal, right? They are going to be the people that are going to maintain the systems. They're the people that are going to be there to support the systems. So you really want to make sure that you're considering them and make them understand that they are important, that their role, their knowledge, and everything is not minimized by the fact that you're automating something or you're putting in a fancier system, that their value is still very good. So it's really important because, like I said, people are the key to running these computerized systems. It's also important because these people are also the ones that make the decisions on what to pay for. And they need to know that what they want and what they value to obtain for their business is important. So making sure you build those relationships and making sure you take care to understand what fully is needed. And it could be that you are impacting another department that you're not aware of, but you want to know about that because you don't want to impact that other department. So it's important to really look out and see where your impacts are, what's going on, what's happening, and form all this relationship so you get the full understanding of what the system does now and where things need to be looked at for these improvements to make sure that it runs smoothly and it achieves the goals of the business.
Thank you so much. That's very, very important. And thanks for highlighting those reasons for us. The next question I have here, guys, feel free to ask Beverly any questions. I'm looking out in the chat. So if I see any questions, I'll post on my own questions and so that she can address that. So please, as you listen, take notes and drop any questions you may have for Beverly this evening. The next question I have here is how do I, as a business analyst, I'm a new BA or I'm a BA, I'm a practicing BA that have not adopted this mindset or that has not been practicing customer-centric analysis. How do I begin to imbibe this culture? How do I begin to put this principle in practice, right? So that I can do better business analysis work and create better value for my stakeholders.
For me, there's really a few key components, and it really comes down to, I'm going to say, three very big things that I find, even if it's not focusing on, like, if you're just even doing system analysis, three things that are really, really key, but really crucial when you're doing customer-centric analysis. The first is curiosity. Be curious. Find out why they're doing it, how they're doing it, what they're doing, when they're doing it. Ask that old old thing that we talk about, we always hear about, the 5 why questions. Ask those. Find out really what's going on. Sit down with people, find out what they do. One of the greatest learning lessons I had was I had set up a process. It was actually for a UAT, and I set up a test. And we got into the middle of the UAT, and we're waiting for this person to finish. And they're like, I don't do the work this way. That's not how I do the work. And they had a workaround, and that's how they did their work. So sitting down and being curious about how people operate and how people work and what's valuable to them is really the key. Then connected to that is the listening part. Really learn how to listen, because quite often what is not said is more important than what's said. Because they'll tell you, oh, I just put in 7 numbers. Well, where do those numbers come from? Why? What numbers? How do you select those? Where, so they may just say, oh, I just put in 7 numbers. Or there may be 3 steps to calculate that 7 numbers that they put in that they're not talking about because it's so routine to them. So really listen to what you're hearing from them and help that to formulate your questions, but also help that to understand and show that you're interested, right? So listening is really a key skill here. And I think the final one, really, especially when you're dealing with customer-centric analysis, is you want to focus on your audience when you're presenting details. So if you're presenting diagrams, if you're presenting mock-ups, if you're presenting any type of artifact, even a documented requirements document, you want to make sure that it is focused to the audience that's reading it. Because the CEO is not going to want the details that your technical team is implementing this. They want a much higher level. The people that are operating it from day to day, they still don't want the technical, but they want something deeper than the CEO. So make sure that you have those focused discussions, those focused artifacts to help the people understand. It also brings around a better relationship because it makes them feel more comfortable about the changes. So it's kind of working with them and making sure they understand things better. And when you focus those messages to that particular audience, it makes them feel, cared about and that you actually are trying to help them and not trying to force some type of change on them that might bring about fear or that might bring about something that maybe they don't want to do. And that's what that leads to the fear when they don't know. So those are the key things that I really think are really important to helping build that mindset and working within that mindset of customer focus when you're doing your analysis.
Thank you so much, Bev. And I'll quickly recap. First is curiosity, be curious. Second, listen actively, listen intently, watch out for the body language, watch out for what is said and what is not said. Then make sure you create your communication, your artifacts to align with the audience, right? Depending on the kind of audience you have, make sure whatever artifacts you are using to engage with them really, really connects, speaks to them. Thank you, Bev, for that. We have a question from the audience, and it says, when working on the project and a business analyst is user-centric, but the organization and sponsor is product-centric, how would you navigate this?
That's one of the things that I think is a challenge that we often get, right?
Mhm.
And it comes down to building relationships. So it's a thing of talking to the people. They may not want to be focused on customers, but talk to them, tell them the value of it. Build that relationship and that understanding so that they understand that it is important and this is key work to do, and that you're not trying to diminish the work that they want done, but you want to make sure that you're giving them a complete solution that's not going to impact maybe other business departments or other areas, or maybe impact someone external that you're feeding data to. A good example would be if you're a payment system or you're a shopping cart, right? And you're looking for payment. You don't want to impact the credit card company by sending them incorrect data and crashing something. So these things are what you communicate, and you work to build that relationship with the person so that they understand you're not trying to do something so far out that it's going to be, hindering to them or cost them more money, but that you want to make sure you do a good job of including all of the items that they need to have in order to have a complete solution that is beneficial to their business. So that's one of the key things I say would work in those types of situations.
Mhm. Thank you so much. And I think Destiny actually launched us to my next set of questions, which is talking about the challenges. What are the common challenges one would face? So, and what strategies can help to manage those challenges when they come up in the workplace?
Well, as I said, the relationship building, that's a really big thing, especially when you're customer focused, because you want to make sure that your stakeholders at all levels of the business, is coming from the sponsor right down to the end user and maybe even the customers of that business, understand that they're important, right? And that their input is needed. So you will quite often see stakeholders in very busy organizations saying, "I don't have time for this. I can't make time." But those are the people you really want to reach out to and say, "You know what, your information is valuable, and if you don't have the time, can you appoint someone who has an equal level of knowledge that can help me out on a day-to-day basis, and they can come back and recap to you at the end of the week." And they can review any documentation and tell you what they found in it, and you can review it at a much higher level, and then you can approve or reject what is in the document or request changes. So that's one of the things that you can look at, especially when you have stakeholders that are not able to participate as much as you need them to. Another thing I think that's a common challenge that we see is not having the right stakeholders and not getting the details that we need to have for our analysis. So I think that's another thing you need to look at and really evaluate who you can reach out to find those people, and make sure you have a good set of subject matter experts to talk to get the details of the requirements, and make sure that you can maintain the knowledge flow so that you can do the proper analysis to have a complete solution that's beneficial to the business and not what they don't want. And I think user experience is a big thing. That's a
Mm.
big challenge. And I think that's something that is sometimes overlooked in business analysis work, because we really need to know what the user experience is. I mean, I've had you come to me saying, it's 2 more clicks, but I deal with 400 customers a day, 800 more clicks. And so you really have to make sure that the user experience is a good one. So you may need things like market research if it's an external to the business and user experience. But if it's internal, you can sit down and talk to them and really understand what's going on. If there is focus groups within the business, sit down and talk with those focus groups. If it's done prior to you joining the team, maybe you can look at what they've analyzed from the focus groups, and maybe you can sit down and talk with a few people and really get some more detail on those. But end user experience, I think, is one of the challenges that we sometimes overlook. And then when we have something implemented, it becomes a huge challenge because the end users are going, oh my gosh, this doesn't work for me. It really doesn't work. And I think that's one of the areas you really need to look at as a BA.
True, you are very correct. Traditionally, I never used to pay attention to user experience until I was on a project designing chatbot, and then we had to do user experience analysis, which was very unusual for me. But I had to, as a BA, quick learner, learn and also, get a hang of that process. Also, I'm actually on a project where we're designing a product, and what I hear, the product manager says, oh, we need to reduce the number of clicks to get things done, and that's all about user experience. So thanks, Beverly, for highlighting that. I think we need to have another session that talks about user experience for BAs. So it's
Yeah.
something BAs we should yeah, it's a mind it's a principle we should imbibe in the course of our work, not just gather requirements, write requirements and test, but also the experience is also very, very important.
Yep.
Thanks for
When you're
mentioning that.
yeah, and when you're looking at your customers, your end user is one of your customers, so they're very valuable. And you also have to remember, you don't want to, and I'm going to be very, very open and almost blunt here, but you don't want to upset the end users because those are the people that give you the information on the process. So it's kind of counterproductive to upset them. And that comes into if you're in an area where you're repetitively working with the same business department and you're working frequently with those end users, you want to build that rapport with them that they matter, right? Again, with the customer relationship. So you really don't want to upset them. So you do what you can to help improve their lives. Now, I'm not saying you bend over backwards because, there could be regulatory components that you can't, or there could be other business rules or objectives that would prevent, making everything great for them. But you do want to do the best you can to make the experience good for your end user.
Yeah, thanks. We have one more question from
Mhm.
LinkedIn here. Hi, Solomon. Thanks for your question and thanks for joining us this evening. In fact, I think Solomon is a mind reader because I've heard you mention relationship building, and I wanted you to share some strategy. But let's take Solomon's question and you can answer based on that. So Solomon says, what role does relationship building play in ensuring successful software development across different cultures? Do you have any best practices for building trust and rapport with diverse stakeholders?
Yes, I have actually worked with many people in many different areas of the world. Even going back to when I was working in Dublin, Ireland, I worked with people my team was partly from California, partly from Ireland, and partly from India. So you had to, make sure everyone was on the same page, but you also had to respect people. I think the best approach for me, well, actually, let's talk about the important. Building those relationships is really key to a great working experience as a VA because you're going to build friendships in a way. You're going to build, it's building connection with people. And we work a lot in an IT environment, especially as BAs on systems. It's not all about the previously. The people make the systems work. people are the people behind the system are the ones that do the work. So it's good to build those relationships. You will get more details from people when you take a bit of time to understand them a bit more. When you take a bit of time to understand how they work a little bit more. So I think they're really key to creating a successful outcome of the work that you do. As I said previously, you're going to get information about processes. You're going to get information about workarounds, which may or may not be approved. Then you find gaps in your software that could be closed up, especially if it's something that was, problems for the business and could, damage their reputation or, cause financial problems for them. So that information is very valuable. And it's not that you're trying to say, oh, so-and-so does it. You're just saying, I observed it. And you don't necessarily want to upset people, but you also want to make sure that you're doing things legally. So it's good to know those things. It's also good to have those relationships because those people will help you when you need it. So it could be something that you're struggling with. And there has been times where I'm struggling to understand a process and someone will say, what? I don't know how that goes, but try talking to so-and-so and they'll help you out. So that's key information. And when you're talking across cultures, there's certain things that you can do. And it comes back to the curiosity that I talked about earlier. Talk to people. Find out, so I have a tendency every week, I have a 30-minute meeting with my team and it's open. You can attend. You can attend. If you can't, you can't. And we sit and talk about something that's not work related. If we need to talk about something that's work related, we put it out there beforehand. We're going to talk about the subject. Quite often, it's not work related. We've talked about people's pets. We've talked about people's travels. We've shared vacation photos. We've talked about children, grandchildren, you name it. But that's how you get to know people. And then when you have that rapport with people, at last minute, you call up someone and you say, look, I'm really sorry I'm calling you at last minute, but I really need help with this. And they'll say, give me 5 minutes and I'll help you. So it's really about being curious about people and finding out who they are and how they work. And that helps, even though it's not a professional, how do you do this in your system or how you work in your system, that personal connection will actually help you with your work because you end up knowing the person a little bit more. You understand how they communicate. You understand how they operate when they do their work. So it's a little bit more of a hands-on understanding of a person rather than just saying, you know what, you're a great person, you have great knowledge, but also you're a great person behind that knowledge. And that helps to build that trust. And also building that trust helps with change. People say, I trust them, they're not going to impact my work in a negative way. They're going to try to help me. So you're going to build that trust up. But like I said, with cross cultures, be curious, ask people. I work with a lot of people from India. I have learned so much about every Indian festival you've ever met or food. I've shared recipes with people. And it's because you learn about people, right? And that helps to build that working relationship as well.
Thank you so much, Beth. Thanks. I think you really did justice to that, Solomon. I hope that helped. But I'm going to quickly share one of the tips I use. So at the beginning of the project, because the way you start off, first impression, they matter. So what I do is to spend time. It might be time consuming, but really taking time to build those relationships upfront makes the journey easier. I take time to onboard my stakeholders, like, treat them, it's when you invite people to a group meeting, like a project kickoff, they can be lost in the crowd. But people feel respected and important when you kind of invite them to one-on-one meetings. So what I also do is to prepare slide decks specifically targeted to that audience and or that individual. There may be two from the same department, or let's say one individual right now, and kind of tell them what the project is all about, introduce yourself to them, learn about them, tell them to tell you about their experience and show interest and, applaud their experiences and their work and how well it's going to help you, help the project be successful. Tell them what you expect of them, ask them the best time, the best meeting times, if you are going to have frequent meetings with them, you know, share information with them, ask how best you can support them. Tell them about their roles, what you expect of them, and they should feel free to be open to you and all of that. I found that having those one-on-one conversation opens them up. Like if I send an email or ask for meetings, they are more willing to show up. Unlike when, after the project kickoff meeting, you then begin to send emails for workshops, for interviews, and they're like, who is that person? So that has helped, and of course showing interest in people, if they have festivities, events, even though they might not be your culture or of the same religion, kind of even saying hello or well wishes for whatever they are celebrating at any point in time. It's been very, very helpful for me. um Bev, I don't know if you want to add something else to that.
No, I totally agree with you, Oge, on that. One of the things that I was thinking about is when you were saying that is I agree with what you said, like have that one-on-one talk. For I think it was 5 years, I worked with a group of people. I've never met them, but we have great relationships. Even though I'm not working on their project, I still talk to them. I still send them
Mhm.
messages. Hi, how you doing? What's going on? I never met them in person. It was always virtual. I was in Canada and they were not. So it was one of those things that I agree. You need to sit down. You need to take that time to build that relationship. And when you do, it will be very strong. You put a little bit of effort in, it's very valuable to you as a BA and as a person because you realize how valuable what you're doing is and you realize how valuable other people are. So I agree with what you were saying there about creating that space and that time for people to talk and to come together.
Thank you so much, Bev. That's my last question, and I don't see any questions from the chat. Then, where can our audience connect with you if they want to reach out to you, follow you, connect with you outside of this space? Where's the best place to reach you?
The best place would be on LinkedIn. You'll find me under Beverly Sudbury. You'll see that I have an ACBA and an SP6 on my title of my name, so you will be able to find me. Or just check out, I believe Oge put a link in the description of this event on LinkedIn as well. So please do reach out. Happy to talk to anyone. One thing I do want to recommend is there's two things I think help people, um, and that's books. Sometimes reading is a key to expanding. And there's a book called The Business Analyst: A Profession and a Mindset. And the lady's name is Julia. I can never remember how to
Oh,
pronounce her last name. I apologize, Julia. I'm so sorry. But I picked up the book after hearing her speak, and it was absolutely a wonderful book to read. Even though I've been in business analysis for a while, it still reminded me of some of those key concepts that I did when I
mhm.
was, starting out and kind of went to the wayside as you get into the repetition of doing things. So that's a really good book. And the other one that I really liked was Listen, Validate, and Connect. And it's communication techniques for establishing strong relationships. And that one is by Sydney Neal, Neel. Two great books that really helped me in my career as a business analyst.
Okay, thanks so much for sharing that. I know I'm very familiar with Yulia's book, The Business Analysis Mindset, but I'm not familiar with it. But I'm going to get that information from you and
Mhm.
share with the audience when I
Definitely.
report this tomorrow. Thank you so much. I love reading books. Now you've given me one more addition to my library. I'm definitely going to check that one out. Any other closing word before we call it an evening today? And thank
Um,
you everyone for joining.
mhm. I just want to say, no matter what you do, just remain curious. Keep asking those questions, and not just about your business analysis, but even in your day to day. Learn about people, learn about anything. Just stay curious. Um, Maintaining that curiosity will help you with your work because you'll naturally become curious. You'll start asking those questions. And the only other thing is I want to say again, thank you, Oge, for having me on tonight. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Bev. I've learned so much this evening, so I'm supposed to thank you, and I'm sure the audience have also learned a whole lot. I think we just have one more question. I think we'll
Sure.
take that. So, he says from Destiny, he says, what artifacts are the best to focus on user-centered analysis?
See, that's one of the things where it comes to what I said previously about communication and
Mhm.
and customizing your communication to your audience. I wouldn't say there's one or two specific things. You're really going to have to look at what is the best way to communicate to your people that you're working with. Um, I'll give you an example. We were doing business process flow diagrams, and I said the audience that's going to be reading these is end users, right, at a bank. They're not going to be able to read BPMN. Like, it's not going to. It's going to be foreign language to them. We need to put this as simplistic as possible because a lot of these people are not necessarily even computer people. They use computers at work, they go home and they do something else. So we need to keep them as simple as possible. And somebody else came in and said, no, 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 we need this. And I said, all right, if you want to try it, I'm not going to stop you, but have a backup of a simpler one just in case. And he came back to me the next day and he said, you were right. I had to go with the simpler one. So that's why I'm saying you're not necessarily going to have a specific tool,
Mhm.
technique, or even a communication style that's going to be the one to go to. It's going to have to be something you're going to have an arsenal of tools in your little toolbox and
Yeah.
pick and choose. Start out with the simplest ones and then start growing from there with the audience that you're working with. And that usually helps because the easier people understand something, the less they fear the change. So hopefully that helps you understand. And I'm sorry I couldn't give you just a specific go with this. I would love to, but it's really sometimes trial and error with the people you're working with.
Yeah, thanks, Bev. I think the long and short of this, keep it simple. Keep the
Mhm.
fancy artifacts to yourself for your analysis, but for your audience, keep it simple. Make sure they understand whatever you're trying to communicate. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And we'll summarize some of the key takeaways from this session tonight and share it via the newsletter. So please subscribe and look out for our next event coming up in 2 weeks' time from today. And our audience will be telling us how business analysts can support artificial intelligence and data analytics projects in their organization. So please stay tuned, mark your calendars, and join us again. Thank you, Bev, once again for joining. This has been quite insightful, and I'm sure everybody learned, took one or two things away this evening. Thank you for your time, Bev.
And thank you, everyone that joined.
All right, good night, everyone.
Night.
Okay.